So welcome, everyone, those of you who are here live and to anyone watching on the replay later. You know me, but you can see here I'm joined today by Jeff Lougheed. He is with us from Meal Garden, and he's going to talk to us today about the modern nutritionist and Meal Garden and really tell us a bit of a story about succeeding as a nutritionist in this ever-changing digital landscape kind of a world. So he's going to share with us today what they've got going on at Meal Garden and just really help us to all feel confident with the platform, understand what it has to offer, and how we can use it to build a really high impact business that each one of us loves, but also is going to be making your life and your clients' life easier at the same time. So I'm glad to see some of you here joining us live. And as I said, thank you if you're here on the replay as well. So from here, Jeff, I'll really turn it over to you. I know you've got a good presentation plan, so you're welcome to take it from here. And we usually offer Q&A at the end. So if any of you have questions as Jeff is presenting, please throw them into the Q&A box and we'll try to get to those at the end.
Perfect. Okay, and thank you so much for the introduction. And I will share my screen, go over here, open up my presentation, and let's just make sure it's over here. Can everybody see my presentation here?
Yep, looks awesome.
Great, excellent. So I'm Jeff. I am the co-founder and practitioner success lead at Meal Garden, and my entire world for the last 4.5 years has been helping nutrition experts like you introduce digital tools to their practices. Okay, so that's what I've been doing. I love it. It's my favorite thing to do. My career is based on helping different types of verticalized professionals introduce digital tools into their businesses. I spent a tremendous amount of time at a company called Constellation, which is now one of the world's largest technology companies. Since then, I have also achieved a graduate certificate in cognitive coaching, a graduate certificate in data science management, and I'm working on a graduate certificate in design thinking. So what all that means is I can be a very good resource to experts like yourselves. You'll notice I didn't mention that I have any background in nutrition. I am not a nutrition expert. I was not a human resource expert. I was not a social media expert. I certainly was not a transportation expert, but I do love helping people. And I do have backgrounds in coaching, data science, design, these types of things that really make me help you. Okay. So that's my background. We can talk a bit more of that down the road, but what we really want to do is we're going to talk about, Meal Garden. And really the idea here is to share stories and strategies about using Meal Garden, which is a digital tool in a nutrition business. Okay. So that's what we're going to talk about specifically, just drill into those stories and kind of get a sense of what Meal Garden is. This is not a training session. So we can certainly do Q&As and do some training type things, but this is not a training session. It really is focused on that magic that happens when you start introducing digital tools and how that other people have succeeded with that. Okay. All right. So we're going to start, and this is one of the stories that I have from early on in my career at Meal Garden, and a practitioner. So we refer to all our practitioners as members. So when I use that term, I'm talking about someone just like you. So a member contacted us, and her name was Diana, and she was from the Fort Lauderdale area. And she contacted me and she said, "Hey, listen, I have a client that is trying to get healthy, and they insist on having team lunches with their work team every day. And they insist on eating a burrito." I was like, "Okay, well, that's interesting." Okay. And she's like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what the burrito makes. Like, how can I incorporate this into, not only how can I incorporate this into a meal plan, but how can I help them to understand the eating behaviors they have to have if they're going to eat something like a burrito, right? So again, I think this is a really great example of some of the challenges. I don't know if that resonates with you all, but let's take a look at how Meal Garden helps to do this. And to me, this is one of the interesting things. So the first thing I looked at is like, okay, well, how are we going to figure out what the nutritional makeup of a burrito, right? So you could go to the place and buy a burrito and kind of deconstruct it. You could do that. And she's like, yeah, I could do that, but I don't know. I was like, well, all right, well, why don't we go over here? And what Meal Garden has is we have a direct connect with USDA, okay, which is the world's predominant data source for foods. Again, a conversation that I don't think we need to go too deep into, but if we want to talk about the different data sources for foods and all that history, I know a lot about it. USDA is the #1 source. The America spends the most time collecting and analyzing this data. The Canadian food data source is actually a derivative of the USDA. So everything comes from that. So we created a direct connect here, right? So I said to her, all right, let's go in here and let's just type in burrito and see what comes back. I think I just spelled that wrong. Okay. So these are all the burritos that the USDA has. And what you can do in Meal Garden is you click here and kind of get a sense of the nutritional makeup of the burrito. And for Diana, it wasn't necessarily about being 1,000% accuracy. It was more about having a picture, painting a picture for her client so she can have strength in her conversation around kind of getting the client to understand, right? When we talk about coaching, we talk about behavior changes. The first thing you have to do is get people to really buy into this concept, right? So we found a bunch of burritos and I was like, well, let's take a look at it. So we went over and we created a meal plan, and we're going to call meal plan for Steve. This is just a name I'm making up. We like this. And we're going to add any lunch snacks right now, but we're just going to go here. We're going to leave this for now too. We're here, but we are going to add a default set of goals. Okay, so I've set up a default set of goals, and we're just going to go ahead and create this meal plan. Okay, so now there's the meal plan, and now what we need to do is we need to add this burrito. So we went into here, and we went. Okay, click here. Here's the burrito. One regular burrito. Can look over here, and she's like, okay, so now what we're going to do is she went in. She added it to every day of the week. Hit finish. Okay. And right off the bat, we've added a burrito, and we can see all these goals we have here. Okay. So these are our macro goals. These are our nutrient goals. The only nutrient goal I've set up is a calorie goal. So you can see here that we're under the calorie goal, but you can see here also we're a little under our protein goal, but we're already hitting our goals for the other things. So she's able to use this information to create a plan with Steve around the burrito. So she can say, hey, you know what? If we're going to have breakfast, right, which we are going to, obviously you're going to have breakfast. So let's take a look at what we would have for breakfast, right? We'll click here. And what she can do is what she's talking to us about, how much time do you have? Well, you know what? I'm busy. I need to move fast. Okay, we'll go like this. You know, are you interested in smoothies or eggs or those kinds of things? So lots of things you can do to really count down. We say, hey, you know what? Let's just do 5 ingredients. Okay, and let's go like this. Let's sort by popular. Okay, and you might notice here we're looking at reviewed recipes. So Meal Garden has kind of these multiple sources of recipes. We have reviewed recipes. We also have public recipes. Meal Garden was really born of practitioners like yourselves just entering recipes into Meal Garden. One of the things that I found when I came to Meal Garden and started talking to practitioners, they're like, hey, public recipes are awesome, but they're very inconsistent. And I need to be able to get in, find recipes, create a plan, and get out. So what we did is I hired a team of dietitians to go through, and not just dietitians, but dietitians that have a real passion for recipe development. Okay. So that's not everyone is not necessarily into recipe development. The dietitians I went and found were, so registered dietitians into recipe development, and they started going through the recipes, picking the most popular recipes and making sure that those recipes adhere to a specific standard. Okay. So some of those things might be all the foods are matched to the USDA database, right? That's one of the most annoying things. You find a recipe and one of the ingredients isn't matched to the database. So that means the nutritional values are off, right? In addition to that, though, there's some nuances to recipes actually where you want to, I might be speaking to the choir here, but where you would want to put the ingredients in the order that they're used in the instructions, right? Little things like this, making sure that the instructions don't speak to servings because you can adjust servings, things like that. So just making these reviewed recipes so they're just really quick to get to. But We also left the public recipes open so that if you can't find something reviewed, you can check public recipes as well. There's over 10,000 recipes in the database. That was a quick sidebar. So we'll keep going here. So now we have breakfast under 10 minutes, up to 5 ingredients. We're sitting with Steve, and we can actually start clicking on these and seeing the impact they have on the nutritional makeup, right? So there's a good one right there. Everything's looking good. We're still way under, but this is only our breakfast. So we're going to click on this. We're saying, you know what? Steve probably eats the same breakfast. We're going to eat the same thing across here. We're going to hit schedule. Okay, so now we've gone ahead and added the breakfast there. And we can also go in here, and if we wanted to add a food, maybe a banana, we can go in here and we can add a banana. It's really easy. We'll say a medium banana. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to schedule the banana on each of the days that we're having their breakfast. We're going to hit finish. You see how everything is starting to update, right? And we're in our, we're a little outside of our range here. So we have lots of things that we can see and we can build. And as Diana was working on this and building this out with Steve, she really was able to build this kind of understanding of how Steve works and what Steve's going to do. And after she's done, she can go like this. She said, share. She's like, all right, Steve, I'm going to send this over to you. And they were in the same room. We're going to go Steve, and we're going to go Smith. And we're going to Steve.Smith at, just to make sure I don't send it to anybody. We don't need any other information. We're going to go next. We're going to go ahead and send now. We're going to hit create. Now we're into Steve's thing here. We can send an email to Steve. I'm just going to go ahead and close that because what Diana actually did, she went in here. And she grabbed this link, which is the invite link. And she actually sent this to Steve through her message. Okay. And when Steve got the link on his phone, he was able to log in directly to the Meal Garden. All he had to do was create a password, and he immediately had access not only to the meal plan, but to a scheduling tool, a shopping tool, and being able to cookbook, right? So Steve went in here and he saw this. He's like, this is great. And I'm going to go ahead and start using this next week. I'm going to go ahead and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and shop for it. And he went like this, and this is on his phone. So this is Meal Garden is designed to flex on and off the different devices. And here's all the things he has to buy to make up those meals that he's looking at. Okay. So that in a nutshell is one of my, it was an introduction to working with nutritionists and kind of some of the challenges that you guys face, but also is a really neat way of looking at this kind of idea of Meal Garden and how, we're really built around making things, helping you meet where people eat, right? That kind of idea. Okay. So that's kind of the first story that I had for you. And what I thought we would do next is kind of look at where Meal Garden came from. Okay. So we're just going to take a quick detour. We're going to talk a little bit about how Meal Garden came to be. And you may or may not be familiar with a concept called first principles. Anybody ever heard of first principles? Okay. So first principles is a concept that it's used in design thinking. It's also used, it's a very popular thinking model for technologists. Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, all these guys look at first principles. And the idea of first principles is to look at things not from what exists, but from the problems that you face, right? So when I came here and Vlad had been working on this, I was like, I understand that you do meal planning. I get that. And that's interesting. I'm like, what I'm kind of curious about are what are obstacles that practitioners, nutrition experts specifically face day to day? Like, what are the obstacles they face? And my co-founder and kind of leader and executive coach Vlad was like, I'm not entirely sure. He's a technologist through and through. He's in Italy right now. Spectacular technologist. I actually met him. He was one of the chief technologists at Constellation. And he himself, he was like, I'm not entirely sure. As you know, a lot of programmers aren't necessarily front-facing people. So he was developing software. So I said, all right, well, I'd like to talk to 100 practitioners. And these practitioners, a couple of variables here. Number one, I don't want to talk to people that know about Meal Garden. I just want to talk to nutritionists and just understand the obstacles they face. So the first 2 months of working with Meal Garden, this is all I did. I went on to, places like Upwork, LinkedIn, I think Craigslist, and just kind of posted things to find nutritionists that I could talk to and ask them about the obstacles that they face. So what I thought we could do is pause here. And I know we don't have a huge live audience, but there are a few of us here. So I'm kind of curious, what are the obstacles that you face as a nutritionist and kind of practicing in a practicing nutritionist? Be bold. Anyone? Okay.
So I've got here, it says getting clients to comply with the plan.
Yeah, getting clients to comply. Okay, that was a consistent thing for sure, and we're actually going to talk about that for sure. So let's not spend too much time trying to tease answers out of the audience, because I think you mentioned we have a few brave souls that were able to make it in the hot, humid days or the late days, early days of summer. But this was the idea, and that was, certainly one of the things that I heard a lot. And basically, from these 100 conversations, we did a thematic analysis, and we came up with 3 core things. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to parking lot this, and we're going to keep talking about stories about how people use Meal Garden. Okay. And then we'll circle back around here. So essentially, we look at this, and this is something that I think about a lot. And I certainly didn't do this diagram, but I worked with an illustrator, and I hope you guys find it interesting or nice. But the idea that came out of from those conversations to this point is this idea of the modern nutritionist, right? So, we're in an ever-changing world, and what does nutrition help look like today versus what it might have looked like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago? And to be honest with you, a lot of the technologies out there, and I think this is a great market. I think we're all very lucky to have the competitors in the space that we have. And I am some of our competitors, I envy some of the things they do. And I certainly am looking forward to those competitions. But a lot of the tools are really built around this idea of, I need to create a plan, and I need to share that plan. Those are the 2 things that they do: create and share. And that's what's been happening in the nutrition space since we started thinking about helping people schedule meal plans, right? So what does a modern nutritionist do that's different or including in those things? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay. So we're going to click through here. And the first thing that I've noticed that a modern nutritionist does is they teach. There's a lot of teaching happening in Meal Garden, a lot of practitioners that are successful with Meal Garden. And this is going to be really fun talking about these stories. I hope they resonate with you. They actually teach their clients not only about the food, but also about the habits to build and how to use their Meal Garden to build those habits. Okay. So we're going to take a look at another practitioner. Now, you're going to notice here, this is Meal Garden. These are the same colors. I haven't really done anything with my branding, but Meal Garden has a branding engine that you can add your own logo, change your colors, change your fonts. We have what we call a PWA, which is a really fancy term for a very advanced type of mobile app. The idea being that you can brand your mobile app and no one ever needs to go to the App Store. Okay. So one of the things that I learned from talking to people is the App Store is sometimes a bit of the enemy, because once you get into the App Store and you start looking for meal planning tools, the App Store dictates which tool you see first. And, our clients or patients or even contacts are coming to you of a place of a lot of times, a lot of discomfort. They're very nervous. Some of them are very embarrassed even to be coming to you with these types of challenges. The last thing we want to do is further confuse them, right? So we built a PWA, just launches on the phone. As soon as they log on their phone, it says, hey, do you want to join Veronica's Meal Garden? Boom, in they go. It has your logo, notifications. Everything's really easy, really smooth. No updates, no different brands, no confusion, just very easy to use. So my branding isn't set up. I help come up with these colors. So this is what I like to look at, but you can set up your own branding. But what we're going to do is we're going to go into a client that we have called Sarah, and we're going to go into Sarah Stanley. And literally everybody, this is what a lot of practitioners do with their clients, either on the first call or down the road a bit. We have lots of practitioners that are actually doing webinars with their, not only their clients, but with their audiences, and being like, hey, I have a tool that will help you create the habits, right? So it's not just about nutrition anymore. It's also about habits. And I think as a nutrition expert today, you wear a lot of hats. You're not only a nutrition expert, you're a counselor. You can move into in the integrated world, right? So you really are, because nutrition is so meta and so important, you tend to be responsible or the source of information for a whole lot of other things, right? So it's interesting, but what they will do, and this is after intake right now, so you've probably collected a little information about what they like, what they're trying to do and their goals. We have this set up, and you can actually go in and impersonate Sarah. Okay, so this is what we've set up for Sarah. We have a video here. I've embedded a video. We have some resources that we're given, some collections, and then we have meal plans. Okay, so we're logging in with Sarah. We're saying, okay, I'm going to show you how to use this. So this is your recommendations. Here's your chat. If you want to talk to me, you can turn chat off in Meal Garden. If you are using a tool like an EHR system or something like that, wonderful tools, Healthy, Practice Better, all these tools, great partners of ours. We understand that we are a sidekick to those tools. So we make it really easy to integrate Meal Garden with those tools, and also to turn off chat in Meal Garden. If you're already using chat in your EHR, you just turn it off. But there's a lot of practitioners that are not using an EHR and are just really doing this. Or there's practitioners, maybe like myself, that are very comfortable having chat coming from multiple places and really are happy to just spend their time responding to clients. And that's where they want to spend their time anyways, right? Just working with clients. So you can turn chat on and off. We're going to go in here. We're talking to Sarah and say, all right, Sarah, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the first meal plan that I put together for you. Let's just go ahead and schedule it. Okay. And we're going to schedule it for Monday of next week. Are you having any guests over? Now, you'll notice we have guests and it just says Sarah. Now, when Sarah signs up, she can actually create her family. So the meals will automatically scale for Sarah and her family, and she can add guests if she wants. So it's the summer, maybe they're at the cabin, maybe we have mom and dad and the sister over, so we want to amp it up for guests. We're just going to leave it as Sarah. We're going to hit go. And it's going to do its thing. And all of a sudden, boom, we've got a scheduled meal plan ready to go. She can look at her nutrition. I might say, I don't really like my clients looking at nutrition. Turn it off. You just turn it off in settings. No big deal. It's very much configured for you to kind of meet your client where they eat, right? You're going to hear some of these little catch terms I have. Meet your client where they eat is one of them. So here we are. We're looking at, and when we kind of look over this with Sarah, she's thinking, hey, you know what? I don't really like pumpkin. That's not my thing at all. And it's okay. Well, hey, look, Sarah, if you find something in a plan that I've given you don't like, just swap it out. And, here's some different ingredients. And these are, again, I don't want to go too deep into AI and machine learning and all that stuff, but there's a lot of things in the background that are going on with Meal Garden. So we're trying to recommend meals that kind of stick within the, if you have set up nutritional goals, to try and stick within those goals, right? So we say, hey, you know what, let's switch this for kale. Okay, just kale's okay. We're going to switch it. If you noticed here, we also switched this leftovers, right? So we're going to make one on Tuesday and eat it again, but we already knew that and we switched it for her. Okay. And that's kind of how it works. So now she has a shopping list here, got a couple stores set up. So maybe there's a store near, maybe near where Sarah's husband lives. She wants him to grab some stuff on the way home, or a different store. So we can kind of go like this and we drag these things over and then we can send it over and say, hey, you know what? I want to get you, go grab this. It's very, very easy. Really, again, built to be very flexible and meet the client where they are. But again, it really gives you this idea of kind of how your role as a practitioner is changing. It's important for people to adopt technology. A lot of people don't want to adopt technology. They're afraid of technology. I get that. I have parents and I have friends that are just not technologically advanced, and they don't want to be. But tools like this really help. And you as the practitioner, the trusted source, can really help them. So we see this happening all the time, right? So they go in here and we show her how to do this, and we can go back to recommendations and say, hey, you know what? I've given you some resources here. So if you're hungry all the time, here's some stuff for you to read. And you might be saying, well, hey, where are these resources coming from? We have about 100 resources that we've created. Our creative services team, who's run by Leslie, they are on the list of creating more resources for you. You can also create resources yourself in Meal Garden. text, video, all kinds of really fun things. So really to make it really fun and interactive for your clients, all kinds of, you can add collections as well. It's really easy to kind of show people how to use the technology and how to make the decisions, right? So that's kind of a summary of this kind of idea of teaching. And again, I see this, one of the things that we consistently see is practitioners that use Meal Garden really embrace that idea of I'm a nutritionist first, but I'm also a coach. I'm also a consultant. I'm also a listener. So lots of things that I need to do. And also this idea of, in Canada, I think we call it holistic. In the United States, I think we call it integrated. But this idea of, even though, in my humble opinion, nutrition is meta, it is the one thing, maybe outside of sleep, but the one thing that can really have a very fast impact on your daily lives. And again, as nutritionists yourselves, I'm sure there's been a time where somebody came to you and just off the top, you're like, I can see that you have an allergy and I am going to eliminate this food for you. And I think in a few days, you're going to actually start feeling a lot better, right? So nutrition is meta. We have to do a lot of different things. And, the idea of this kind of interactive tool really helps people so that you don't get into the situation. One of the things I learned a lot when I started was this idea of PDFs. And I think PDFs are still very popular. And I get that and I respect that. A PDF is a very, very old technology and it's not very dynamic. So what I did here when I talked to practitioners that use PDFs is there's a lot of back and forth. Oh, I forgot to tell you this, or, oh, actually, my son doesn't like spinach, or actually kale. It's kale. Kale is the thing that not a lot of children like. So these kinds of things we're getting back and forth. So what we really encourage people to do is kind of approach it from a digital perspective, right? So this idea of working with the client, providing them it digitally. And if the client wants to print it out after they've gone and scheduled it, they can go in here, they can download the PDF. The way that this works is they actually what it downloads, it'll just download a calendar for them, right? So they can put it up on their fridge. So again, one of the things we do at Meal Garden is trying to bridge those divides. So how come people are using PDFs? Well, you know what? Some people really like them. Okay, we get that. But what is the other reason? And what we dug into is people like to have that on their fridge. This is what I'm eating. So we're like, all right, well, let's work with this and try and bridge those gaps and work our way across, right? So I'm going to take a quick breath. Are there any questions around this idea of teaching or using the tool to build habits? Any questions anybody has? And I apologize. Veronica, I'm depending on you here because I can't see any of the questions or any of those things.
Sure. So there is one question here.
Sure.
Jessica is asking, is there a way to have the meal plan with pictures, not words?
No, there is not at this time.
Okay. And I have a question. It's maybe a little granular for where you're at now. But earlier you were showing how you can add just a food to the breakfast. So you had added a banana.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that, as you said, with some of your lovely competitors, is actually quite limited, where you can only have a meal and one other thing, and then that's it. Is there that same limitation with Meal Garden, or can you add
No.
as many foods as you want?
You can add as many foods as you want. You can add as many foods as you want in a lot of
Okay.
different ways. I think one of the things we're most excited about is additional food sources. So we will be adding branded foods. And again, I want to make sure we don't get too far off course and too deep into the technology, but we have a slide at the end that we're going to talk about the way we approach development and innovation. And we're going to talk about that. And I appreciate you bringing it up because it is like so exciting to me. That's one of the things. And we've got some really exciting things going on around. Again, I think, Veronica, that idea of meeting people where they eat, right? Like USDA is great. People shop in grocery stores. People have all kinds of options of foods. How do we, as a practitioner, if somebody says, well, I really like this particular brand of tofu, you're like, okay, well, let's make sure we can find that brand and to do those kinds of things. So we're certainly aware of that and working on that. There's no limitations of how many meal slots you can do. You can move them all around. You can do some really fun things. Like I know one of the fun things that we're working on as well is, and this is something I came across through a recent interview, is that many practitioners like to actually tell or suggest to their clients or patients at what time they should be eating. Right? Yeah. So we're starting to incorporate that concept too into our meal plan. So not only is it days, but you can actually select the time and say, this is the range. This is when you should be eating these different things. Notification, all kinds of really fun things happening, but no, there's no limitations.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. No problem. Okay. So here's the next part of this that I think is really interesting is, modern practitioners need to be able to offer flexible solutions. So we've been talking a little bit about this, meeting people where they are and then helping them get to where they want to go, right? So there's different ways and different reasons for using different things. But the one thing we find a lot of practitioners do, so we're going to flip back over to the software, is the one thing we find a lot of practitioners do is they're like, during the first initial intake, my client doesn't need a meal plan. They're not interested in that. They've got it covered. And I would imagine what I've heard is that sometimes that concept changes as you continue down that road of your journey, right? So at first they're like, I got this. The third or fourth time you see them, you're like, it doesn't look like you got it. And at that point, they're like, yeah, maybe I do need something, right? And then there's also the reverse. Somebody asks for a meal plan, but they don't follow it all. So how do we look at this and say, okay, well, you got to meet them where they eat. So if a client says to you, hey, you know what? I don't need a meal plan. Could you just give me some recommendations? So yeah, you can go in here. Again, you're going to see this idea of pre-made and created. So we have a whole bunch of pre-made recipe collections. We have a whole bunch of pre-made meal plans as well. I haven't looked at the screen for a while, so it's loading up here. So these are all created by our registered dietitians based on all kinds of data coming out of our system and conversations with practitioners, right? So I'm going to show you this popularity thing. I just got this added in and I love it. So basically what this is going to show us from the pre-made, so all the thousands of practitioners that use Meal Garden, this is the most popular meal plan to copy. So let's take a look at this. And we can look at it and we can look at the nutritional details if we want. We can drill down into specific days. This is really great. We can print it out right from here if we want. We can take a look at the shopping list. So if you're looking at the shopping list and you see walnuts, they don't like walnuts, you can click here. Okay, it's the 2 meals. I can switch that out. That's okay. Very straightforward. You say, you know what, I'm going to personalize this. I'm going to go ahead and use it. And we can go in here and we're going to go for Sarah. We're going to copy this. Okay, so now we have this meal plan. Now, if I wanted to, I could go over to the settings. I could go into goals and I could establish some goals. So if I had macro goals, if I had a specific, magnesium is one that we see a lot. Like if you're dealing with somebody in a precision environment, you might be working on getting a few of those nutrients up. So what you can do is you can go in here, you can set up these numbers. And when you go back here, it'll magically appear. It'll show you where that plan is and then start kind of helping you to add the right foods, right? So if we're looking for something with a high level of magnesium and we said, hey, CD hummus toast, that's not going to work. So we're going to go ahead and remove that. Yep. And we're going to go back in here and we're going to say, you know what? I want to see nutrients. I need something with a little more magnesium in it. We're going to go like that. And the system's looking. And basically what it's doing now is looking at these different requirements and it's trying to find meals. Sorry, my light just went out. With that much magnesium. Okay, so it's really quite easy. And this is where a lot of our efforts are moving as we move forward. And we'll talk about this later, is kind of in trying to make it easier for you to find, for us to actually recommend these things rather than, reducing steps, right? Pretty easy development, but reducing steps. So you click on this. And we can kind of see where it comes in. You're like, yeah, that's great. So probably not the best snack though. So let's go meal type. Let's go snack. Let's turn these off and let's see what happens here. Okay, there we go. And those are good reasons. Let's click popular. Let's find something. You know what? This is probably going to work. So let's go ahead and schedule that. Okay, there we go. So it's really straightforward. Now, when we kind of go in here, we're going to go to preview. The trick here is, remember, Sarah said, I don't really need a meal plan. I just need some recipe explanations. Okay, let's just go these and we're going to copy them into a collection. We're going to create a new one. We'll go Sarah's starter collection. I just realized that I use Sarah a lot. I don't know why, but I do. So we're going to go in here. All right. So now we've taken a meal plan and just turned it in a collection. So we can share this with Sarah. We can actually add this to Sarah's portal, because what we want Sarah to do is we really want Sarah to start scheduling meals, right? So there's an interesting distinction between planning and scheduling. And for me, what I want my client to do is schedule. Planning is important, but and there's a very subtle difference between this. But as a coach, and as you learn through coaching and really cognitive coaching, words mean a lot. So if you say to somebody, I need you to plan this, a lot of the reaction is, I don't have time to plan. I got kids, I got this, I got that. I don't have time to plan. If you say, hey, you got to schedule, that's different. You're like, I schedule things because I schedule meals with my friends. I schedule calls. So it's a very subtle difference, but it's very powerful, right? So just kind of a little bit of a sidebar there, but we can go in here and we say, all right, Sarah, we're going to share this with you. And you know what? This isn't the Sarah we're talking about. We're going to go ahead and create a new again, and we can just go in, create this, share it with her, get her signed up, and she'll be able to use this to build her meals in Meal Garden, right? Really straightforward. Very easy to do. Now, if we had Sarah's starters collection, maybe we just heard back from Sarah. Oh, by the way, I don't like milk. I'm dairy intolerant. You're like, oh, okay, no problem. So let's go in here. Before we share this with her, let's go filter. Let's go dietary, dairy-free. We're gonna hit apply. Okay, all right. So 2 of the meals that we had actually had dairy in them. We don't want that. So let's go select all. We're going to say add to. We're going to create a different recipe collection. And we'll go Sarah, dairy free, create. Okay. So really easy to get in here and start customizing and doing these kinds of things. It's really, really straightforward. So again, it's that idea of, do I need to create a precision meal plan based on very specific nutrients? Sure, that's very easy to do. Do I need to just provide kind of a guideline for my client, just giving them some recipes instead of actually creating plans? Yeah, that's easy to do as well. So it's very straightforward, very, very easy to do. And that's kind of that again, that's that idea of being flexible, right? Of meeting people, being flexible and meeting them where they are, right? Okay. How we doing here?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good. Okay, great. Okay. So this is a fantastic story. And this is one of the neatest projects I've worked on, larger projects, but a really neat and I think a really exciting project. And this is with HEB. So I'm not sure if anybody on the call or anybody is familiar with HEB. They are a gigantic grocery chain in Texas. They're the largest. So they're for the Canadians on the call, they're very similar to Loblaws in Canada, but they're HEB, and it's a great organization. One of my favorite or neatest things about HEB is they really early on they recognize the importance of tying food with health. So they have a whole group of employees called Wellness Services. 40 or 50 dietitians that actually are in the store working with customers that come in to help them eat healthier, right? So Stacy, who actually organized and manages that group, came to us and was like, hey, we need a tool. This is a big organization, tens of thousands of employees. We need to be able to show not only our impact to the organization and the community, but also to get organized. Like, we have all kinds of different meals and foods and all these things. We need something to help us do this. So we actually worked with them, getting their system set up, loaded a bunch of their foods. It was a really great project. And what they did really well, and this is my favorite part of the story, is they asked Meal Garden, we're like, we need you to create us. Not only do we need you to load some of our foods, but we also need you to create meal plans for us. And we were like, okay, we can do that. Here's the thousands of dollars that'll cost. About 3 weeks into the project, I was talking to the project manager, like, hey, do you want us to get going on those meal plans? She's like, you know what? We can actually do it. It's not as hard as we thought it would be. Now that you've loaded our foods, we can build our own meal plans, and we're not going to need that work, which was, fine for us. We're not, we're not necessarily, we don't like spending our time building meal plans. Happy to do it, but was even more happy to hear that they were able to do this themselves. And some of the neat things that they did with the system that I wanted to point out, because when as we evolve and kind of introduce aspects, new features, new workflows in our software, we release it to everybody, right? So it's very much the boat goes up, right? So the one thing that they did that I thought was fantastic was they created all their own personalized tags. And they came up with this prep time idea, which I think is a really great idea. So they were basically heat it up, assemble it, or just recipes, right? And if you think today about grocery stores, it kind of aligns, right? You can get a grab and go meal from a grocery store. You can get something that you just put in the oven and go. And what they recognize, they're like, well, this is the kind of stuff that our clients, this is how we're going to meet our clients where they eat. So it's just really exciting. So they used all this tagging system, and this tagging system is available to you as a practitioner as well. So, we have hundreds of tags that we've created, but we don't know your business as well as you do. And you may be doing things that are unique to your business that you want to organize. So you don't always want to have to be looking for, maybe you have a group of recipes that you really like to use in a certain context. You can favorite them for sure, but then they're just in with your favorites. What you can do is select them and tag them, and then you have them grouped, right? So it's very lightweight to group your content. And again, one of the things I find with modern practitioners is they don't have a favorites on their on kind of their browser where they just have a whole bunch of recipes. They don't have a bunch of Word documents with recipes in them. They really kind of create content and they really do spend time curating content. So I know some practitioners will go in once a month, go to favorite recipes, just like to see certain most popular recipes, and they'll select those recipes and they'll share them with their audience. Say, hey, here's, because that just speeds it up, right? So that's one aspect of it. The other thing that they did that was really neat is they do brand partnerships, right? So they will have a brand that they're highlighting through promotional stuff. So what we did is we introduced this system where you can actually, the foods that you create, we will track how often they're used in meal plans, in recipe collections by your clients. So if you're building a brand partnership, it's very similar to, I know we're all familiar with influencers. And this idea actually came out of my time at a company called Keyhole. And we sold social analytics. So we actually did this kind of stuff, right? A brand would say, and I'm sure some of you have had these partnerships where online you're sharing a brand and then you have to collect the number of engagements and this type of stuff. So what we did is we kind of built that in for nutrition. So we're like, well, these are the foods. This is how many times you've used it in a recipe, how many times you've used it in a collection or a meal plan, and also how many times your clients have actually scheduled it, have shopped for it, this kind of stuff. So it's kind of taking that idea of social analytics and applying it to the nutrition industry, right? So that's a big deal. And when you kind of look at Meal Garden, when you go in here, you'll see these ideas all over the place, right? So we have all these different tags, and you can create personal tags, or you can review our stock tags. You kind of look like this. It's very, very straightforward, very easy to do. We've actually added some of these nutrient things. So actually, one of the things we learned from not only from HEB, but from other practitioners is people were creating meal plans, what they call 1,200 calories, right? Which is, it's kind of embarrassing for me. This is my software, so we're going to put it on popular, but 1,200 calories isn't a very exciting name. And what we noticed, we kind of stopped ourselves. How come why are they doing this? We're like, oh, because you have to be able to find it. So that's why we added these type of filters, right? So you can go in here and you can say, you know what, show me meal plans that are kind of, between these ranges. So rather than having to name the plan, we actually enable you to search for plans based on nutritional values, right? Okay. Any questions there?
Don't see any at the moment.
Okay, cool. So I think we're doing good on time. How's everybody feeling? I guess, again, Veronica, I think you're the only person I can see. Are we moving in the right direction? Is this interesting to you? Are we getting there?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I'm maybe still more in the old school camp myself.
Sure.
I've been in this industry a long time,
Hmm.
almost 15 years. And to the point that you made earlier, like you said, the way that we would do things now is so different than 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 15 years ago.
Hmm.
And what always stands out to me personally when I'm looking at these tools is just how much time and effort is saved for the practitioner and the client versus how we did things when I was first starting out. And so I can see that in all of the filters that you have, and all of the different ways that you can tag things and those easy swaps and things like that. It just saves so much time and effort. So I think that's really valuable. We have one question that came through. Is there any option for a free trial to check out Meal Garden if someone wanted to play around with it?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I believe your partner in
Sabine.
crime is Sabine.
Sabine. Yeah,
Yeah, I sent her a link for
beautiful.
the networking nutritionist, and I have set up a specific onboarding. So anyone that signs up with your link will get an email from me with a link to my calendar, and I'm happy to, like I said, my favorite thing to do is help people introduce digital tools. I understand. I truly understand how fast paced your days are and your worlds are. So, I'm here to help. I work late and early. So, but yeah, there's absolutely a trial. And we actually have a special trial that we've set up for networking nutritionists.
Amazing. I'll make sure that that link gets up with the replay, everybody.
Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of the last place we're going to stop and start. And this is the last thing about the modern nutritionist that I think is important. And it's this idea of what I've noticed. And again, I am very lucky. I thank you for this opportunity. I'm very lucky to be able to talk to so many practitioners and understand what they're doing and be able to provide some support. But what I've seen is practitioners grow through these types of, like you grow, right? One-on-one coaching is where most practitioners start. So Lisa Kilgore, Paulette Kidd, I think those are two of my two people that I work a lot with, and they started here. They started one-on-one coaching. And what's important about one-on-one coaching, I think it's the same in almost every industry. You need to really have conversations with your clients or your target clients to understand what they're going through, to build that empathy. Not only to build empathy, but I really understand what it takes to get them from where they are to where they want to be. And I think anyone who doesn't necessarily start with this type of approach is potentially taking a hard road. Right now, there's lots of people that do go right into these different groups, but I've noticed out of the vast majority of the folks that I've worked with, they all started in one-on-one coaching. That's where they started. From one-on-one coaching, they moved to small groups and programs. And then from there, they moved to larger programs, right? So Paulette Kidd is spectacular. She runs a large program. When she started, she was doing one-on-one coaching, and she moved into the small groups and programs. Now she has a TV show. She has her own podcast. She's just really doing a lot. And Meal Garden played a small part of that. We made some of that possible, but it was really her grit that got her there. Lisa Kilgore is the same example. She started here, moved to here. She now has a TED Talk. She's written a book. So you're going to see this progress. And what I've noticed, and we have a whole new group of code. We have Michelle and we have Nicole over in the UK. They're just starting out. Heather, who's just starting out with that one-to-one stuff. Even Heather has actually just moved into small groups. She's like, I've got enough out of one-to-one that I've been able to build packages that I can share with my clients. And Meal Garden is built in a way that they can filter out things they don't like. So when they onboard through Meal Garden, they can say, I don't like these foods, or I want to dairy free and stuff, and we'll automatically filter that stuff out. So we're really, we're building technology to help you connect and grow and really focus on conversations and having those kinds of conversations. So what I have here is just a couple of these ideas. So I'm going to see if I can't, let me see if I can click on this. I don't think it's going to open for me. We got to open this in it here. Okay, so I've clicked on the wrong thing. So let me try this here. So these are programs that are built in Meal Garden. Here's a beauty one. So this is a program. This is Marta, and she is fabulous. This is a program that she's built. This is a no-touch program. that she's built in Meal Garden, and people can subscribe to it, and they can pay, right? So that is kind of the last evolution of Meal Garden, is this idea of programs, right? And what a program is a collection of content, resources, collections, and meal plans. You can combine them. You can add payments to them, right? So you can go in here and you can go in here and you can go into these things with a brain health program, and you go in here and you can add a payment option. So you can actually add a one-time payment. You can do reoccurring memberships. And this is really the idea of, if you want to add payments, you're now generating revenue, right? Or you can use packages for those kind of repeat, for your niche or your audience, for those repeat, those kinds of protocols that you see often, so you don't have to constantly be reinventing the world. This is one of the areas that we're spending a lot of time on, because we're seeing our audience and our members are growing in that direction. So they really want to start doing this stuff. Now, I certainly understand that there's different tools that you can use for programs and courses and those types of things. I think it's a very complicated market as a nutritionist. There's far too many tools and none of them do all the things you need. But this is certainly a great tool if it's an add-on to a program that you're running, or if you just want to run a nutrition-based membership. We have all that data that makes it really useful, right? So that's kind of the last kind of component that I wanted to talk about. And essentially the story that I'm telling here about a modern nutritionist is this: Meal Garden is really a digital toolbox for a modern nutritionist. Okay. And the three things that the three thematic themes or thematic things that we came up with when, after talking to those 100 practitioners and the 500 or 600 later, is I need to be able to easily create and manage nutrition content. I need to make it easy for my client to succeed. And this was the last one. I need to collect payments. I need to make money. I need to make more money. So these are the three things that we really grow and build around. And these are just all the different things that people do with Meal Garden. So last night, I spent some time just thinking about all the different conversations I've had with folks about what they needed me to help them with. And these are all the different things. So if you do any of these things and you want to kind of use nutrition as part of that, I'm happy to help. And Meal Garden is absolutely a good tool for that. And I guess the last thing is this kind of idea of development. This is kind of dry maybe, but this is what I'm most excited about, is how we look at things and how our system evolves. So from a development perspective, we use now, next, future. These are the things that we're working on now and next. So we're optimizing tags and tagging. We'd say, well, why are you doing that first? We're like, because that classification really builds into our automatic meal planner, which is a very interesting, it's going to be interesting how this works, because I can say this with all confidence: nobody loves meal planning, but everybody needs a meal plan. So we're really approaching this from a different kind of perspective based on this idea of first principles, but I think it's going to be really neat. We've got some really, really cool projects that we're working on with Instacart right now that I think is going to be really exciting, not only for making it easier for some of your clients, but also a new way for you to generate revenue. And then a new experience for your members, right? So we're working with a design organization, and we're really optimizing your client's experience, just because we got to get people using the technology. We really need to make it easy and lovable for your members, so that they'll continue to use it. And then again, that kind of leads into this long-term strategy of developing this reoccurring revenue source, which I think is the golden egg in all our businesses. And I believe, from what I look at, I believe nutrition is a key thing to doing that, right? So that's where we are. I think we have 3 minutes left here. We got a little tight at the end there, but I think I got a little excited. So thanks so much for your time.
No, thank you. There's a couple of questions
Of course.
already queued up here, but for those of you who are still here live, I want to invite as well, if you have any last questions, to pop those into the chat or the Q&A. This one's a really easy one. Where is Meal Garden based?
We are based on the internet. We are in so we have we're registered in Canada. We're a cloud-based system, so we're on the Amazon servers. We have employees in Mexico, Nova Scotia, the Netherlands, Italy. I'm trying to think where else we have an employee. I think that's where most of our employees are, right now. So we're
Wow.
kind of everywhere. I'm in Toronto.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, and you're in Ontario. Okay.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
good. My question
Mhm.
is, if you had to pick one, what is your absolute favorite feature that Meal Garden offers?
So I think my favorite feature that Meal Garden offers is the way we integrate and link. Like I think that to me is the neatest thing we do is we enable you to take this link, drop it anywhere in any of your other tools, and we've built Meal Garden in a way that it's very lightweight so that it will launch and you can really use it with a lot of other tools. I think this is one of the things that we've done was a really sharp thing for Vlad to do. I think we could do a lot better with kind of our sharing capabilities, which we are going to. But this is, I think, kind of the neatest thing, which is maybe not very intuitive, but it just makes it um, so easy to share. Like I was saying earlier, right? Like there's so many different tools you almost have to use right now if you're a nutrition expert. And how do you plug them all together? It can become like mind-bogglingly frustrating. So we just made it easy. Just take this link, you drop the link in, and we do a lot of the work in the background. So if somebody logs in through this link, you have a way to configure the link through parameters to make sure that they experience what you want them to experience. And you control all the different experiences, right? So you control what content your clients have access to, the data they have access to. Like you can really tailor that, and you can kind of do it through these links. So that would be my favorite part. Second favorite would be our ability to ingest foods, right? So to make it easy for you to create a pre-made meal, to use the USDA foods. I think that to me is also a really sharp thing because again, meeting people where they eat.
Mhm.
Oh, this would be my-
So a follow-up to that answer with the sharing link. In your experience, where are nutritionists or nutrition experts sharing that link? You mentioned earlier within EHR if they were going to share that in, Jane or Practice Better or something like that. But
Mhm.
where else do you see folks using that link?
Sure. So, oh man, I can just run through so many. Mighty Networks is one. What is it? Teachable, Thinkific, um, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. You can use the link through your email marketing, through a blog. So like this is why I love it so much, right? Because it makes it so easy to just share content. And that link is available on every piece of content in Meal Garden if you own it. So you can't share a link to a reviewed recipe. You have to copy that recipe into your database. And that comes down to the branding, right? So you've created your own Meal Garden. Like that's the important distinction for Meal Garden is it's not the Meal Garden, it's your Meal Garden. You control all the content, you control the experience. So that's where we see the link being used most often. I've seen some really neat things where people that are writing books are creating collections of the recipes in the books and using that link, turning it into a QR code and actually putting on the physical book and saying, hey, if you're looking for a tool to do meal planning, you just check this out. That's pretty cool. So that's where I see the link being used in all these different places. I know I was speaking to Nicole last week, and she's going to use the link for programs where she does recipe development or meal development for restaurants, so restaurant consulting. So she's actually created a program, shared that link with the restaurant, so her and the chef can actually communicate over changes to recipes via Meal Garden, and all of her restaurants will have their own link and their own little room in her Meal Garden where she can communicate and make changes in real time to the recipes together, right? Rather than sending PDFs and doing email and stuff like that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, that was our last question. So thank you, Jeff. You did a great job as I said, last question, one more popped up. What currency does a Meal Garden use for nutritionists to subscribe?
I love it. So the subscription currency is we are in US dollars. That's our currency. If you are a Canadian member, hit me up. And if you can confirm you're Canadian, I have a discount code for Canadians to kind of match up that currency. And we also, from a payments perspective, if you're going to sell content, we let you accept Canadian, US, Euro, Australian, and I think the United Kingdom. So we support most of the English speaking languages or prominent English speaking languages for you to collect payments. We're in the US dollars as it is, but hit me up. We certainly we recognize that we're not all US, so there's an opportunity for codes to kind of marry that up.
Yeah, that's excellent. We do have a lot of Canadians in our group, so I will make
Great.
note of that
Yeah.
along with our replay as well, so they know that they can get into contact with you. All right. I think that was actually our last question this time. So thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing all of this information and giving us this nice little overview of Meal Garden in the package of a story as well, showing how all of these other nutrition experts are using the tool. Any last things that you want to add before I let everybody go for the afternoon?
No, I hope you all have a great summer. Thank you so much for your time, and yeah, thanks for all the things you do. It's everybody needs a nutritionist, so let's keep working hard to get everybody to have one.
I love that. Thanks so much. All right, everyone, thank you for being here. Have a great afternoon, and we will see you soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.